Ezri mimadeno isish mein vo tzalitin lamit raglecha lianim shemrecha hine lo yana velishen shomer Yisrael adenu shemrecha adenu tzilcha liad yiminecha yom yom Hashem shlo yakek overer baloi lo adenu yishmachu mikol ro yishmer esam shecha adenu yishmar tzisro v'yacho miato v'yahadoi lo. Oh, my dear friends, today Rosh Chodesh Elul, obviously a proper day to start giving even more tzedakah than usually, and this will hasten it even more than usually. Eibishter usually hasn't been hasting. Now it's time to really hasten it. So we want the Geula now, and we're giving tzedakah now, and we're going to learn a little Dvar Torah for today's Rosh Chodesh Elul. We have 2 days Rosh Chodesh, yesterday and today. But yesterday, the first day of Rosh Chodesh, is always still considered part of the previous month, and the second day of Rosh Chodesh, it is actually the first day of the new month. So the new month is called Elul. And in fact, from today until Yom Kippur, we have exactly a total of 40 days. Now, these 40 days correspond to the third time Moshe Rabbeinu went up to God after receiving the Torah the first time, and then breaking the tablet with the sin of the golden calf. Moshe Rabbeinu went back then and came down the second time, where God had forgiven. But Moshe Rabbeinu said forgiveness is not complete until you replaces the first tablets. God said, you're welcome to come again. And then on Yom Kippur, Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second set of tablets. And by Yomer Hashem solachti kidvorecha, God said, I have forgiven, as you have requested. In other words, completely clean slate. You have the new set of tablets, and we're back to, as the song goes, let's be friends. We're friends once again. Our relationship between God and us is still strong. These are those 40 days where this is happening. In fact, talking about 40, as we know in Jewish teaching, the number 40 represents a transition from one state of being to another state of being. As an example, let's go back early. The 40 days of the flood, which represented the world from being of a state of impurity, and God has cleansed the world to a state of purity. The 40 years in the desert, that we have transformed from a state of slave mentality, so to say. In modern terminology, we'll call it institutionalized. They were used to, in Egypt, be told what to do, and in the desert, they were used to receiving everything on a golden platter, and now they've been able to transport themselves, to change themselves, to start living a life in Eretz Yisrael with all the responsibilities that it came along. So 40 also represents that transformation. The same thing we find as another example, the 40 sa'ah. That's a measurement, a Talmudic measurement of the required amount of water to make for a mikveh to be pure, to be a proper kosher mikveh. In other words, to transform from a state of impurity to a state of purity. So 40 represents transitioning from one state to another state. Interesting, the names of the month are not biblical. Most of the months have numbers. Some of them will find Chodesh Aviv, but the names in general of all the months, they all came from Babylonia. When the Jews came back from Babel, they came along with the names. And so too is with the name of the month of Elul. Now Elul, as we know, is the last month of the year on the annual cycle. If we are to talk about the monthly cycle, it is the 6th month. But either way, it is not the first month. Why does the name Elul start with an Aleph? Should have started with another letter. Whatever it would be, but something which would be more reflecting that it's not the beginning. So here is the thought that the Rebbe brings out and says the following. It is the beginning. It's a new beginning. A beginning of what we just said, a beginning of transitioning from our behavior of the past year, from whatever we accomplished or failed in the past year. And now we're starting a 40-day journey, which ends, as we said, with Yom Kippur. But interesting, How is this journey being happening? So we know the word of Elul is an abbreviation for Ani ledoidi v'doidili, which represents I get closer to my beloved gets closer to me. God is saying, I'm coming towards you, but it is for you to make the first step. That first step is what? Interesting, with the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Tov, which stands for Teshuvah, returning. So this is what this Aleph represents. It's the beginning of the process of Teshuvah. We have 40 days of making up, if you want, of transitioning, of transforming our entire past year by making a commitment of doing better. And then we come to the Tov, the end, the Tov which is the Teshuvah, the Tov which also represents Torah, the Tov which also represents Tefillah, but that is for our next little message. In the meantime, Aksiva v'chasima teva, a wonderful